Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be sharing with you 10 of the best manga I've been reading, and hopefully, you find something you'll enjoy. With that being said, let's get into the video. Starting our list with Yomi no Shugai. This manga is created by the same author who did Full Metal Alchemist. In an isolated village, two twins were born, separated by day and night. It is years later, and while the older brother Yoru has become a hunter of animals, his sister Asa has been locked away in a cage, ordered to perform a special duty that prohibits her from meeting more than a few select individuals. One day, a group of armed men riding in helicopters referred to as dragons by the citizens assaults the village in search of Yoru, killing everyone else on sight. When Yoru attempts to meet up with Asa and flee, he finds a dead body instead. On top of that, the person who killed her claims to be Yoru's true twin sister. During the assault on the village, Yoru was taught how to unlock his Shugai, which are servants that can do whatever you want them to do. Yoru's Shugai is called Sayu, and they are extremely powerful. At the time of making this video, there is only 8 chapters right now, so there is not that much to go off of, but it's pretty good so far with interesting character and also a pretty interesting premise. Moving on, Full Night. In the distant future, the earth is covered with thick clouds and the sun is no longer shining, a world where plants have died and oxygen has become thin. However, humans have survived by developing technology that turns people into plants to produce a small amount of oxygen to survive. Will they live as humans in this uncertain world, or will they abandon their suffering and embark on a new life as plants? They are forced to make a choice. While there aren't too many chapters out at the moment, it's really good so far. Full Night has a unique plot that I have never read before, with interesting world building that takes advantage of the incredible visuals and surreal yet dark atmosphere. It is way more interesting than how I make it sound. The series has a lot more to offer, so I recommend you give this a try and see if it's your type of story. Moving on, we have Witch Hat Atelier. Coco, a humble dressmaker's daughter, has always been fascinated by magic and the witches who cast it, despite the strict precautions they take to hide their methods from the public. However, when Coco takes advantage of a golden opportunity to spy on the skilled witch Kifri, she realizes that her favorite picture book was a disguised magic book all along. In her excitement, she immediately starts testing out the various spells. This manga presents an immersive world filled with mythical creatures from harmless animals to monstrous predators. It has one of the most unique, if not the best, magic systems I have ever read. It keeps consistently reasonable art, with remarkable visually, both characters and environment are given the same level of detail. The story is interesting and it isn't as simple as it might seem at the beginning. There's a lot more I would love to get into, but the video would be way too long. It is a great fantasy manga about witches. I highly recommend reading it. Next up, Suzu no Frieren. The Demon King has been defeated, and the victorious hero party returns home before disbanding. The mage, Frieren, hero Himmel, priest Hyder, and warrior Isen reminisce about their decade-long journey as the moment to bid each other farewell arrives. But the passing of time is different for elves, thus Frieren witnesses her companions slowly pass away one by one. Before his death, Hyder manages to foist a young human apprentice called Fern onto Frieren. Driven by the elf's passion for collecting a myriad of magic spells, the pair embarks on a seemingly aimless journey, revisiting the places that the heroes of yore had visited. Along their travels, Frieren slowly confronts her regrets of missed opportunities to form deeper bonds with her now deceased comrades. It's an interesting and charming fantasy manga with a rather unique idea, because, rather than following the hero and his party while they journey to go defeat the Demon King and save the world, it follows Frieren as she travels in search of new types of magic after the world has been saved. Years can pass by in a panel and decades on a page. Overall, it's a promising fantasy manga about an elf who loses her friends to the passage of time. Next up we have Sanda, and it's probably the most bizarre one on this list. The story starts with Mita, a second-year middle school student, getting attacked with a kitchen knife by his classmate Fuyumura. While Mita couldn't make sense of the situation at first, he gradually came to believe that Fuyumura's actions were just mean acts stemming from the latter having a peculiar puberty phase. But that was all a misunderstanding. Fuyumura's friend recently disappeared and people believe her to be dead, but Fuyumura believes that she's still alive and that Sanda can help her find her friend. After that, things become really bizarre. I don't want to spoil anymore. Also, this manga is from the same author that made Beastar, so if you enjoyed that series you might like this one. Moving on we have Oshi no Ko. 16-year-old Hai Hoshino is a talented and beautiful idol who is adored by her fans. She is the personification of a pure, young maiden. But all that glitters is not gold. Guru Amemiya is a countryside gynecologist and a big fan of Hai. So when the pregnant idol shows up at his hospital, he was astonished. Guru promises her a safe delivery. Little does he know that an encounter with a mysterious figure would result in his untimely death. Opening his eyes in the lap of his beloved idol, Guru finds that he has been reborn as Aquamarine Hoshino, Hai's newborn son. With his world turned upside down, Guru soon learns that the world of showbiz is paved with thorns, where talent does not always generate success. I love this manga. Each chapter is full of content and emotions, as it effortlessly switches from showbiz to mystery, romance to high school setting. Each separated category somehow blends flawlessly. The way the story is illustrated to the readers is very unique, the art is phenomenal, and the paneling helps with the comedic timings and punchlines. I highly recommend reading this. Next up, on our list we have Out. 17-year-old Iguchi Tatsuya has just been released from juvenile detention and is on probation. He's been relocated to a new area, away from the bad influence of his old friends, and is under the care of his aunt. He is determined not to be sent back to lockup, and he works hard in his aunt's restaurant. However, he still has the same personality, the same tendency to violence, and still falls in with the same sort of people. It's going to be difficult for him to stay out of trouble. The first 30 chapters were pretty chill, but when they started introducing the factions, it went from a friendly delinquent slice of life to a straight-up manga about warfare. This manga shows how brutal and dangerous the delinquent world can be. The tension you get when reading this manga is what makes it so unique, at least in my opinion. The art style is really good and every panel is detailed, emotions are portrayed amazingly, and the fights have amazing choreography. The characters are great and charismatic, and each of them is unique in their own way. They all have their own goals and objectives and personalities. If you like delinquent manga with a whiff of gore and comedy, this is for you. Otherwise, I don't recommend reading it. Next up we have Maria Jedikson. Hitman and a marriage swindler set out on the world's most grueling battle for marriage. Jero is a young man from a clan of hitmen, which has been in existence for hundreds of years. As someone who's never gone to school and lived his life dealing in the dark side of the business, he considers himself to have no prospects with women, and marriage as something not for him. However, one day, in fear that their lineage would dissolve, his clan warns Jero that if he doesn't marry and produce an heir, they would have no choice but to force his little sister instead. I like what it's done so far. This is a mixture of a super-powered fighting manga with dating advice, and I'm interested in seeing how these various relationships and fights will play out. Overall, it's a pretty good manga so far. I hope that it doesn't just fall back on that corny and cliched way of ending things, where the person closest to Jero ends up being the one for him all along. I mentioned this one in my previous video, Valhalion the Black Iron. When he woke up, Sumatetsu Jiru, a samurai from Kamakura who had survived the Mongolian invasion, found himself in an unfamiliar place. He was told by Rist, the girl who brought him there, that they were in Valhalla, a place where the souls of dead warriors congregate. For him to be revived, Tetsujiro now has no choice but to fight against the dead warriors from different eras in this mythical place of carnage that he's been thrown into. This is the start of a samurai drama where one has to fight and strike down their enemies, even if it kills them. This manga is a masterpiece with endearing characters. The art will leave you amazed. The details that the author can draw are astonishing. The only downside is that the fight scenes can be a little hard on the eyes. But other than that, it's a pretty fun read. I highly recommend reading it. And finally, Sakamoto Days. Taro Sakamoto was once a legendary hitman considered the greatest of all time. Bad guys feared him, assassins revered him, but then one day he quit, got married, and had a baby. He's now living the quiet life as the owner of a neighborhood store. But how long can Sakamoto enjoy his days of retirement before his past catches up to him? This story reminds me a little bit of Gintama and John Wick, but does its own thing incredibly well. It manages to blend comedy and action extremely well. It's a funny manga, had me giggling with every chapter in the series. The humor is on point and the characters are entertaining and intriguing. I'm not going to spoil too much about the plot because the less you know, the better. So give it a few chapters and see if it's to your liking.